No chips, don't let the salad win. That's the message in terms of nature of the food maybe that we consume in Wales.
It's Wrexham.
He's done it! The magic little man, Watkin. Oh, he scored! Steve Watkin has got a goal!
Ball breaks for Bowden, it's in early, as Rush likes it, and he'll chase it, he'll collect it, Ian Rush!
Bennett, and that's a second for Wrexham. Well, classic, changing defence into attack.
Connolly! 1-0 to Wrexham, Carl Connolly's done it!
Trundle for options, put it back to Morel. Oh, it's a good save! Oh no, it is, and it's in the back of the net. Andy Morel. What a chance! What a goal! What a goal from Al Robson Cardiff! Folks, good way you kicked up. Something special is happening here tonight. Wales are going into the semi-finals of the European Championship.
Wanagati, Ferguson has definitely won it for Wrexham now.
Here's Mendy! There's that Racecourse roar again! Save by Foster!
Wales are going to the Euros next summer. Wilkinson's wonderful Welsh women.
Wales! Wales have done it! They've reached the World Cup! It's him again! Champions! Wrexham are promoted! They have their storybook ending!
The first team in history to eat more chips and not let salad win.
Hello and welcome to the Eat More Chips podcast, the official podcast for one of the greatest Welsh supporters flags in the known universe. No Daz this week, as he's on a missionary work spreading Welsh to the unwashed masses, but in a week when emergency responders in Connecticut were called to a playground for an unusual rescue, when a 40-year-old man became wedged inside the middle portion of a tube slide. The town of Vernon Fire Department said on social media that crews responded alongside Vernon EMS and the Vernon Police Department just after 4:30 p.m. on Saturday for a combined space rescue of a 40-year-old adult male stuck in a tube slide on the playground. The man was said to be wedged feet and head first in the middle portion of the slide in Northeast Elementary School. Photos from the scene show the man had somehow ended up sideways with his body folded at the waist. The rescuers set up ventilation equipment to keep the man cool amid the high temperatures inside the slide. Firefighters removed the section of the slide to reach the man who was stuck. The patient was freed within 30 minutes and was evaluated on the scene by EMS. The patient refused treatment and transported to a local emergency room, the fire department said. Now, I wonder where Jamie's been all week. Here he is. Let's ask him. It's Jamie.
I'm super impressed you got through all that without having to hesitate and cock it up like you usually do, given that you're live and you can't edit it.
Those of you who are more astute have noticed that it looks and sounds a little bit different this week, and that's because we are actually live for the first time. Terrifying prospect for me because I don't like being live. I like having a nice trampoline where if I mess things up, and it's normally me who messes things up, I can edit it out later. However, today, it's all live, so it could be absolutely disastrous, particularly when I stand up and I found out that I've got no bottoms on, but we won't talk about that right now. Jamie, hello, welcome, how are you? So the reason we are live is because you've not been well, I've not been well, we've not had a chance to sit down and actually do the pod. Daz is away, so he can't run the ship on his own, although we will hear from him a bit later on with his predictions. How have you been? How's your back is the most important thing.
So tender. I'm so annoyed about it because it stopped me going to the Joey Jones service. The most innocuous thing ever. I was changed, showered, ready to go. I was just having some breakfast and I just literally sat down and felt my back go. And then I spent the next 48 hours walking like a shit myself. So yeah, not great because I've got work coming up this weekend as well, so it's not great, but a little bit better than a couple of days ago. But yeah,
that's quite ironic because normally you're not off your back, so there you go. As you rightly said, though, Wednesday was the big day, and I did make it up for the Joey Jones celebration to reflect. I haven't put any pictures on because, to be honest with you, I found it quite emotional, really emotional, to the point where I was, I got quite visibly upset. And I know I wasn't the only one. There were other people there. I mean, just to describe, I mean, those of you have seen it online. It was a fitting tribute to a man who has devoted much of his life to Wrexham Football Club and Wrexham Town. There were some lovely moments. I mean, the amount of footballers, ex and present, and youth who were there was incredible. The words that were said, the stories that were told, the eulogies that were given. The thing that really kind of got for me, we were all sitting obviously in the Mould Road stand, which was practically full. Ron Male Voice Choir were in to sing some songs, which was, which Joey loved, which was brilliant. I think the thing that got me was at the tech end of the ground, all the academy staff and academy students all lined up facing the Mould Road stand, creating a gap. And then Joey's coffin was brought in, carried by such people as Mickey Thomas and Gaz Owen and other ex-players and friends, which was an incredible thing to see. And as Joey's coffin passed the academy players, they each bowed their heads one by one. It was, and I'm getting affected thinking about it now, which is why I don't really want to talk about it too much, because the last thing you need to see is a fat, bald, old guy cry online. But it was really, really effective. I mean, obviously, Jamie, you weren't there, but from what you've seen and what you've read, I mean, do you think this is the send-off for Joey and for Mr. Wrexham?
Yeah, I think I know you said that you started off by saying you haven't posted any pictures or anything else. I know there was some sort of a few sort of contentious debates, shall we say, online about some people saying, I can't believe people have taken pictures and videos and put them online, and then others sort of saying, I think, there was nothing disrespectful that I saw, and I think obviously the club have put out some of their own stuff. I believe the documentary crew were there, so I dare say it'll be covered in the documentary. From everything I saw, like you've just described, it looked the perfect send off. And from people that I've heard that were there, have all kind of universally said the same thing, that the people that were involved in organising it and what they did on the day was a perfect send off. I'm just, like I say, I'm just gutted that I missed it. But by the sounds of it, it was a perfect send off that he quite rightly deserved.
Well, goodbye, Joey, and thank you from all of us. It was a brilliant time, a brilliant ride. We couldn't have done it without you. You were at the helm. You were pushing us and pulling us all the way. And we will be eternally grateful, and we will never forget. And it was spoken about, the statue is happening. Everybody, players, fans, staff, all looked at Mike Williamson at that point. So I think if it doesn't happen now, there would be big words to be had. So
I think that's a minimum. They've publicly gone on record, haven't they, and said they're going to do that. That'll be a minimum. I think the hope is that there'll be a little bit more, maybe. What and how that form that'll take, I don't know. But the statues are a minimum. That they've got to do that now. They've got to see through on that.
The one thing I read, moving on from Joey this week, is residents living near the Stoke Kairos recently held a meeting to discuss concerns about the impact of the new cop stand will have on traffic and parking. Obviously, since Ryan and Rob have took over, there have been a huge increase in the volume of pedestrians and motorists in the vicinity of the racecourse during home fixtures. And given the football club's continual growth, more and more fans are now visiting the racecourse ground. Excuse me. While authorities have taken action to include restricting access and implementing road closures, residents have continuously complained about inconsiderate parking over the last few years. After concerns continued to be raised at the start of last season, local councillors held a meeting with the football club's CEO, Mike Williamson, in a bid to address the ongoing issue. Now, planning applications have been submitted to the local authority that would see the capacity of the racecourse rise to nearly 18,000. Residents are in support of the COP plans, of course they are, but they're calling for a clear transport strategy on dealing with the increase of fans on match day. The meeting was held with council officials, police, highways. One group that apparently wasn't present was a representative of the club, which I'm quite disappointed about. Jamie, this is an important issue because although it doesn't affect you and I, and it doesn't affect many people who go to the ground, there are obviously those people who are living close to the ground who every time there is a home match, it affects their access to their property and their ability to get in and out. Now, some people might say, what's the problem? It's, it's only once every couple of weeks or maybe twice a week if there's a midweek game. They've only got to be held up for, maybe an hour and a half at the beginning and an hour and a half at the end. And then there are other people who are saying, well, everybody has right on a public road to access their own living quarters. So it's not fair if people are just parking wherever they want. Now, I've noticed that photographs like online this week where lots of people park on the Mold Road verges, near the B&Q. I mean, down where Colliery Houses is, as you go down towards the Pandy Lane and everything, people just absolutely stack up there by the primary school. And all the roads around, just people do seem to park where they want. I mean, do you think that the residents have a valid point on this, or are they kind of just making a mountain out of a molehill?
I dare say there are one or two that are probably making a mountain out of a molehill, but I do have real empathy with residents affected by this, because if you remember where I used to live, was very much affected on match days with parking. Now towards, so I used to live by the hospital, which is, maybe a 10-minute walk from the ground, but it's kind of far enough out. But there are a few local people that kind of know it as a good little sneaky road to park on that's far enough from the ground, that it's, well, walking distance from the ground. So on match days, it used to be a nightmare because anything from, 2 o'clock till 5:30, 6 o'clock, it was just rammed. Any spare space on the street, and it wasn't a big street, was rammed. And for a long time, or a lot of the time I lived there, it was a pain in the backside because it was a terraced house, so I didn't have a dedicated parking space. So you could guarantee if you were out during that period and you came back, you wouldn't have anywhere to park. And towards the latter stages of me living there, there was a garage attached to the property, which was further up the street, and I converted the in front of the garage basically into a parking space. So I alleviated it a little bit, but I do empathise with the residents of streets in and around the racecourse, because we've seen those pictures you're referring to, and we've witnessed it with our own eyes, haven't we? The problem is that a lot of people haven't got common sense, and they just dump their cars anywhere.
I mean, having said, let me just do it. Having said that, you can understand it, but now, because I parked last Saturday, which we'll talk about the game in a second, but I parked in the Tech, in the car park of the university, and it's gone up to £12 now to park there. Now, obviously, you can park in town. You were saying to me last week, Waterworld car park. Now you can stay there for an elongated amount of time, because it was at the old library, or is now the police station. That car park used to be, but now you can't because it's short stay. But Waterworld, you can. You can stay, obviously, in T-Pawb, and T-Pawb actually is fairly cheap, but obviously that's a fairly long walk into town. So if you have mobility issues, obviously that people can't do that. So they're not. The parking situation doesn't really help itself with regards to what is and isn't available, does it?
No, it doesn't. And I would like to think that the council have put some pressure on the club to come up with a potential solution as part of the planning application. And I've heard talk of like an out of town park and ride being set up. So I think they trialed something last year.
Do you remember the old Lego? Do you remember the old Lego
building?
Yeah, it's there. Yeah. It's there, which is now a council building.
The problem you've got, I mean, in principle, you'd say that's a great solution. The problem is, or the reality is that it has to be an efficient service, because if you've got, I don't know, 3,000 people that use a park and ride, then it needs to be an efficient and quick process to get people dropped off and then also get people taken back after the game. Because if people are left stood around for forever, they're just not going to use it. So, that is it is going to be a challenge, and it'll be interesting to see, what plans are put in place. I guess the responsibility is going to be put on the club. Like you say, I don't think I've not come across any residents who have objected to it strongly. They're all for it because they can see the benefit of it. But I do understand and I do empathise with their situation. I think part of it people have to take a little bit of responsibility themselves and stop being so selfish. But also, because you are talking about increasing the capacity by quite a significant amount, there does need to be some contingencies put in somehow. How they look and how they play out, I don't know. But I mean, there must be other clubs in a similar scenario. We can't be the only club who've got a stadium in a residential, close by residential areas. So there must be solutions.
And absolutely, and I think that's a good idea. To look at other clubs that have similar issues. Because obviously a lot of the older grounds, they are built up with a lot of residential housing around them. They're not kind of out of town shopping area styly things where you can have space to do retail stuff. A lot of them are within kind of terrace streets and things like that. So I think certainly we should look at that. Do you think the club need to engage in this more rather than? Not apparently, as I say, apparently they didn't turn up for this meeting. Again, is that a good thing?
I'd heard that as well, and again, it's another example, isn't it? It's another example of where we sometimes, for all the good we do as a football club, and there's been another beautiful one today, which I'm sure you're aware of.
Yes,
but
we'll talk about that in a sec.
For all the good that we do as a football club, and we do an awful lot of good. This is not a focusing on and dwelling on the negatives. We do a lot of good things as a football club, but we don't half shoot ourselves in the foot sometimes. Honestly, we don't half shoot ourselves in the foot sometimes. And something as simple as a representative from the club going to this meeting, it wouldn't then have been highlighted as much, does it? But it's not a good look. It's not a good look. I just hope that the club work with the council officials, work with the local community to iron out and get this sorted, because time's ticking on. Time is bloody ticking on for this. We need to get cracking with it. So these things need sorting.
Well, after we'd responsibly parked our vehicles and made our way to the ground, Saturday saw the first Championship League game at home for Wrexham in over 40 years. And of course, we hosted West Bromwich Albion. Jamie, let's talk about the lineup first before we talk about the game itself. Unchanged, apart from James McLean coming in for Libby Kakache. Any surprises there for you?
I think Kiefer Moore was the big surprise, wasn't it? That the fact he made it. I think Parky always does a really good job of keeping his cards close to his chest where injuries are concerned. But I just think purely on the basis of the still photograph we saw of that challenge, where we saw his foot basically pointing back towards our goal. I didn't think there would be any way he'd make this game. So the fact that he was playing was a big surprise. Obviously Kakache picking up a knock. It made understandable that McLean just come straight in for him. Other than that, I wasn't surprised there were no other changes, because overall it was a good performance against Southampton.
The interesting thing is, thanks to Matt at Racecourse Scramble, who tweeted today, apparently Kiefer Moore got out of his vehicle at the ground and limped into the changing room. So I hope that's not an omen of something that happened. Brilliant. Anyway, the game kicked off under a cracking atmosphere by both sets of fans, we played a really, really good game. It was 20 minutes in, Isaac Price from inside the box to score the first for West Bromwich Albion. 42 minutes, Lewis O'Brien with his first Wrexham goal after he shot the ball into the ground and bounced up into the net. So 1-1 at half time. 74 minutes, Wallace comes on and scores at the near post almost immediately, something that we'll talk about in a second with regards to Danny. 81 minutes then, a Price header in a nearly open goal with some pretty week 20th in the Championship. The big kind of bad thing for us from our point of view was that Josh Windass obviously went down holding the back of his thigh, and reports now look like he's going to be out for between 4 and 6 weeks as a minimum with a hamstring strain. Jamie, what did you make of the game itself?
Well, before I talk about the game, what was your? Because you asked me about when I went to the whole game, first trip back to the Kairos this season. How did you find it? What did you think of the changes and the pitch and being back there?
I thought the pitch looks like a
It's unreal, isn't it?
carpet.
It's
incredible.
unreal.
Absolutely incredible. And the fact that it's slightly raised as well. You notice now that it's probably a few feet higher than it used to be. Still can't get used to the dugouts being opposite.
No.
And I did say to Dave, who sat next to us, when I looked at those lovely chairs with the Wrexham emblem, I said, give it a week, they'll be in the front of somebody's Corsa. So, that was great. Atmosphere was really good. I felt at times it was a little bit flat. I don't know whether that's because now we are a three-sided ground. I'm not quite sure. But particularly when they went ahead, they were very, very vocal, to say the least. And you can tell they obviously packed out their end because they had the upper and lower of the Wrexham Lager stand filled out.
Yeah.
There's some positions of some cameras on a post which is a little bit annoying. Didn't get in the way of me, but on the post which is about 3/4 down to my right, it looks like some CCTV cameras and some dome cameras, but they've been put at a particular height that if you're now sitting as a season ticket holder right near the away end at a certain level, the whole of the tech end goal is completely blocked, where you can't, even if you move around, you can't quite see it. So I'm not sure whose great idea that was. And I did notice there is some at the other end as well. Now, I don't know whether that is hampering anybody's view at that end, but I would imagine it is. So it'll be interesting to see what comes of that. But yes, I mean, it's just great to be back. It's great to be back, at the Kairos. I've missed it. It's great to have a match day. And particularly at this level, the atmosphere is something else.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting you call out the atmosphere there. I think it is going to make a difference this season with only three sides, isn't it? Because as much as the COP came under it for a little bit of criticism at times last year for kind of the lack of atmosphere, it made a massive difference having that fourth side. Like we spoke about at the start of the season, I think it's going to be really important this year that the three sides of the home crowd, really get behind the team, because what we've witnessed, we've witnessed it against Hull in the cup, and then even though I wasn't at the game, I could pick up from it from watching the game back on TV, and the away crowds are going to be very, very vocal because they're going to sell out. Every home game they're going to be full. I can't imagine there's going to be many that won't be, and they're going to be like we do when we go away. They're going to be vocal. So it's important as a home fan base that we. And this is not me trying to be the crowd police at all. I'm not at all, but it's important that because we can create an immense atmosphere at the Kairos. We've witnessed it, so that's going to be really important. The game itself, though, was again like the Southampton game. It was a good watch. It was a great game of football. I thought. I watched it and thoroughly enjoyed it. When after watching the game, my immediate thought was, what we've witnessed in the two league games so far is we're talking about real fine margins here. The Southampton game was very much that, and that was the case with this as well. After watching the game, I thought it'd be interesting to look back at the stats to see, because it felt a very even game. And then when I look back at the stats, and you've put them up on the screen here, that's kind of what the stats show. It was a very even game. We're very used to seeing Wrexham concede, lots of the ball, but it was a very 50-50. But we're I guess we're learning a bit of a harsh lesson here with these teams, aren't we? In that the level, we knew the level was a step, but it is a big step. We've got, you're dealing with players here who will punish you if you make mistakes. They will punish you. These players now have got, whereas in League One we maybe came across teams who had one or two sort of star players. We're coming across teams now who've got 5 or 6 championship quality, championship proven, really good quality players. I mean, that Isaac Price who scored 2 goals, I thought he was brilliant. I mean, he'd been called out on one of the other pods before the game for his threat, and he was brilliant. To be fair, as one player. But yeah, from our point of view, I thought we played well. First 20 minutes, there was very little between the teams at all. But then obviously they get the first goal. Not great defensively. Certainly, I wouldn't be as critical of this one as maybe the second one, but it wasn't great defensively. The fact that I think we spoke about it briefly last week, and this is not me starting a hate campaign against James McLean at all, but I'm a bit worried about him in this league and the level, the stage he's at in his career. I'm a bit worried about him in this league. I know he's got championship experience, but he looks a little bit off it to me. And I think he got caught, he got caught out. He didn't do enough to stop that ball coming in. And then I think you could point fingers at the defence, how Isaac Price ended up with the space he had inside the 18-yard box was crazy. But to be fair to him, it was a good finish, slotted in the bottom corner. Criticism, there were criticisms towards Danny Ward for that goal as well as the other one. I'm not having that. I don't think many goalkeepers would have stopped that. It was a precise and accurate finish, and fair play. He slotted it home well. But we kept going, and I think we got our just desserts by getting an equaliser before half time. It was interesting because when the game was live, obviously I was working, so I wasn't really following the game at all. But when I looked back at the notifications, I saw one that said, what a goal from Lewis O'Brien. I'm thinking, oh great, we're going to see a worldie here. But yes, it was well controlled, but it wasn't anything sort of
an element of luck in there, wasn't it? Because it could have bounced over the bar, couldn't it? Really?
Yeah, I'm not convinced at all that he deliberately hit it into the floor like that. But look, it found the back of the net, and that's all that matters. So I think to go in at halftime 1-1 was the right result at that point. Like you said at the start, the kind of one blot on the copybook from the first half was Josh Windass. I've watched enough football over the years to know that when players make the sort of gestures like he did as soon as it happened, he knew straight away that it was a bad injury, and like you say, now has been confirmed 4 to 6 weeks out, which is a huge blow because I think he's probably been the kind of standout so far of the first few games certainly of the new signings. So to be without him for that period of time is going to be a blow. However, I'm not as concerned as I would have been just purely because of the transfer business we've been doing. But that was disappointing. But I suppose every cloud and the silver lining to that was the fact that Nathan Broder gets to come on and make his debut maybe earlier than was expected. And then as we go into the second half, there was that move. It was literally within 60 seconds of the second half starting, and there was that move where we attacked, and you had Lewis O'Brien with the little back heel, Broadhead in the middle of the goal, and he slots it wide. Now, for me, that little passage of play is why I am not concerned about us this season, because when this clicks, it is going to click properly, and we are going to give some teams some real trouble. I think it's just going to take time. It was a real shame that he couldn't slot that one home, to be fair, because it was a big chance. And then obviously the second half again, I felt was very even until they get the second goal. Credit to their manager. Credit to their manager for making the changes, but also again it highlights, doesn't it, the quality you're dealing with here when they can bring players off the bench like Jed Wallace and Johnston who came on and changed the game. Wallace was his first touch and he puts it in. Now it's created all sorts of debate this week, hasn't it? Danny Ward has copped for some real flack for that goal.
Yes.
Look, he will admit himself he will be disappointed. To any goalkeeper to be beaten near post like that will be disappointed. But some of the kind of vitriol that's been kind of thrown at him this week is just crazy. It's like as if people have just been waiting. A lot of the people that had strong opinions when we signed him, it's almost as if they've just been waiting for him to make a mistake that led to a goal or a costly mistake or something like that, just to jump on it. I think Parky's got a big decision to make.
He
I
has.
think.
I mean, let's just make this clear. Everybody is entitled to their opinion. Absolutely. As long as the opinion is based on, a fair judgment of what it is. And if you think Danny made a mistake, I think Danny will think he made a mistake. He didn't cover his near post. Obviously, as a goalkeeper, that's the one thing that you can't do, is leave your near post open when you have an attacker directly coming in on you. He will know this. But some of the things that I've read have been way beyond the pale.
The thing is, as well, you've got to look a little bit bigger picture. Yes, he's probably the most at fault for conceding that goal, because he shouldn't be getting beat like that. However, if you run the goal back, if you run the play back, the midfield went missing completely. How it got from back to front, bypassing our midfield, just went completely missing. And then the defense, if you look at the defensive position, they were all over the place. So to point the finger, if the guy's taken a 30-yard shot, speculative shot, and it's gone through his hands and gone in, fair play. You say that's a bad goalkeeping error. But for me, I think Danny Ward's contribution of that goal was one element of what was overall a poor goal to concede as a team. Yes. I just think this goalkeeping situation is an interesting one, because obviously Parky played his hand in the Southampton game, and he's decided to go with Danny Ward. It'll be interesting to see what he does now. Does he stick with him and ride this through? But if he is going to make a change and bring Arthur back in, he's got to stick to his guns now, because not that long ago we were having a conversation about being spoiled for choice for goalkeepers.
Absolutely.
But we've got to pick one and stick with him.
The thing is, as well as I do, right? A goalkeeper, you can't just swap a goalkeeper and just expect everything to work. The goalkeeper talks to the central defenders, the centre backs, the wingers. It's all part of a unit. When you swap the goalkeeper out, then you have to then remake those relationships. So you're starting to think ahead of each other. You know what each other are going to do. If you keep chopping and changing goalkeepers, that's going to be massively disruptive.
Yeah.
So at some point, Parky has to sort of nail his colours to the mast and say, for good or for bad, whatever it may be, this is what it's going to be.
I'm not necessarily saying I think he will change goalkeepers, but I know it's been a topic of discussion this week. For me personally, I think, having made the decision to go with Danny Ward at the start of the season, I think he has to stick with him at this stage, because you can't drop him for one mistake. You can't play like that. It's just he for whatever reason he decided at the start of the season he was going to go with Ward as his number one, and I think Danny Ward had a great game against Southampton. And okay, he had that pretty bad mistake against West Brom. But like I say, for me, you can't just then say, I'm going to drop him and bring Arthur back. I do feel a little bit for Arthur, because my personal opinion is, and I think I said this at the time, I think he'd done enough, and I think he should have started the season as number one, in my opinion. But I don't pick the team. Parky picks the team. He decided to go with Danny Ward, and I think he needs to. Certainly at this stage, I think he needs to stick with him. I think if we look back at, say, previous seasons, I don't think it was last season, it was the season before, wasn't it? Where, do you remember when Ben Foster got brought back? Obviously, yes, Mark Howard was copping quite a lot of flack, wasn't he? But if you remember, I think he had quite a few games where he made some kind of high-profile mistakes, albeit I think he was a little bit scapegoated at times as well, when he played for us. So, Parky has showed in the past that he isn't scared to change the key position of a goalkeeper. But I would be flabbergasted if Danny Ward isn't still in the team on Saturday, to be honest.
If the second goal was bad and people blaming Danny Ward, what on earth were the defence doing for the third goal?
For me, that was a calamity, wasn't it? And again, I think the reason why fingers aren't pointed is because that was a collective balls up. Like you say, defensively, I think if you are going to call out, anybody's as a particularly played a poor part in that goal, I think Lewis Brunt needs to do a lot better. He can't be letting that guy roll through the challenge on the byline. But then how how the ball then has found its way through the defence, out wide, and then back into the box, and then again to find Isaac Price on the 6-yard line on his own with nobody around him.
Yeah.
And again, if you watch it back, and if you watch Connor Cody's reaction, you would probably point the finger towards Lewis Brunt. I think he's the one tasked with marking him, and he stood still. I think again, when you consider the latest signing, which again I'm sure we'll talk about in a minute, that would lead me to think that Parky obviously has had some doubts about Lewis Brunt. Whether we think that's harsh or not, I don't know. But yeah, I think he was culpable for a big part in that third goal. But I think again, like defensively, we looked a little bit all over the place. And I think once that third goal has gone in, on 81 minutes, even though we saw against Hull the week before, you never say never, but that did feel a little bit that was going to be a step too far to come back from. But in fairness, they as they do, despite all the new personnel, Parky and Steve Parkin have done a great job, and they have instilling a mentality in these players, whoever is playing, that you keep going. You keep going and keep going. And to be fair, they kept going. And Sam Smith, I'm really pleased that he got his goal. It was a good header as well. To be fair, it was a good header.
It was, and good to see, because obviously Sam Smith has been a little bit slow out of the blocks with the fact that he's come back from his Duke double operation on his leg, and he's not really had the proper kind of pre-season you would like. You feel now he's starting maybe to get back into the groove, finding places. Fantastic diving header, because I've seen some players attempt that and absolutely mess it up, but that was an absolute peach.
It was, and to be fair, the move was a good move as well. Nathan Broadhead involved, and then out to Ryan Longman, who'd come on at that point, who to be fair, it's been a little bit of a disappointment at the start of this season. I kind of expected a bit more from him, but I think it was, if you watch it back, it was a good move, good ball in and a good finish. Just unfortunately a little bit too late. But like I say, for me, it was a thoroughly enjoyable game to watch again. I know we were on the wrong end of the result again. It's certainly not panic stations or anything like that. Like I said at the start, I'm not worried in the slightest. I'm seeing enough from this team that it will click. It's just going to take time. We've got so many new faces, so many new players. It is going to take time, but yet you look at it at the minute. We've played in the league, at least. We've played Southampton. We've played West Brom. Two teams who I'm sure will be up towards the top end of this league, and we've played big parts of those games where we've looked, like we belong, and just as good as them. Parky, you can see with our transfer business, the amount of players we brought in, the caliber of player we brought in. It's horrible from a sentimental point of view that so many of our players that kind of got us to this point are missing out or are going to miss out. But he knows, as the song goes, he knows what we need, and what we need is this quality and this different level of player. And I think we're getting there. We are getting there, and I this will click. It will click. I've seen enough in these first two games that this will click, and it won't be long before we're winning games again. So I'm not worried in the slightest. I think just finally on this game, I think from a player perspective, the two kind of or the one player really that I made a note of because I thought was kind of standout was Kiefer Moore. I think when you consider the fact that I don't think any of us thought he would play in this game, the fact he's played 90 minutes, and he is so integral to this system that we play. He's so integral to the way that Parky sets this team up, and he works his socks off. He runs himself into the ground. He gets absolutely battered by defenders, and I think referees really need to have a look at how defenders try and deal with him, because there's an awful lot of fouls that happen on him that get waved on. But I think he played really, really well, and again, I'm sure I think I said when we signed him, I think he will get double figures for us this season. I think it's just part of that whole clicking and gelling process. I mean, the hope was that him and Windass would form quite a good partnership. Obviously, Windass is going to be out now, but the beauty is obviously we've got Broadhead there now as to come in to play off him, and they know each other very well. So, I'm sure that it will fire soon, and I'm convinced he'll get double figures this year. But yeah, it's so crucial to this system and the way that Parky sets up. He's so crucial to it. Having that big target man is massive. So yeah, like I say, disappointing result. It was a disappointing result, to lose again, concede another 3 goals, which is a bit of a worry because obviously last season we were so used to keeping clean sheets. What's that? We've had 3, 4, 5, 8 goals in 3 games conceded, which is not what we're used to. So I hope that kind of improves soon. But yeah, I'm not worried. I'm not worried. I think we'll be just fine. It'll click.
Now on the Emo Chips podcast, it's time for today's newspaper, tomorrow's chip paper. We catch up on Cymru and Wrexham football news. First up, Wrexham Academy were due to have a game against Notts County Academy, but unfortunately that was postponed on Saturday. Their next game is versus Mansfield Youth away this Saturday 23rd, and then, quite a mouth-watering tie, they play Cardiff City under-18s in the Cup on Tuesday the 26th of August, and that's at home at Colliers Park. I don't believe it's open to the public, unfortunately, but I'm sure we'll get the result once it's happened. The news came this week that there are 13 new academy intakes, including local and players from the likes of Shrewsbury and Telford. But the one name, Jamie, and I'm not sure whether you noticed this, the one name that caught me was a certain Thomas Watkin, who is the son of ex-Wrexham player and the scorer of the winning goal in our very, very famous Arsenal win, Steve Watkin. I mean, that's quite exciting to have him in the academy, isn't it?
We just need to sign in the academy now somebody with Marriott, Ward, Connolly. Who else was in that song? I think that's it, isn't it? We just need to sign players that have got those surnames now, and we can recreate the famous song from back in the day. Yes, I did. Well, I didn't spot it, but I saw somebody called it out online. I think it might have been the Fearless Boys, to be fair. It's lovely, isn't it? It's a lovely little sort of full circle moment. Steve Watkin is. I think amongst
for me, he's one of those unsung players. Do you know what I mean?
Yes,
he was a great player, but he sort of almost goes under the radar a little bit.
Yeah, the thing with Steve Watkin is I think a lot of people, a lot of fans who've come along in recent years will probably have heard the name, because obviously he's famously involved in the Arsenal win, wasn't he? But you've just hit the nail on the head. That unsung was a great way of putting it. He was, if I could kind of put it into some context, he was like Wrexham's version of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer at Man United. He was always there, he was always dependable, but he never got the big headlines. He was never like Gary Bennett when he scored the goals he scored for Wrexham, or Andy Morrell when he got that 40-goal season or whatever. But he was consistent and he was reliable. And as a lot of people forget, because that free kick of Mickey Thomas's against Arsenal is obviously is etched in people's brains as like the standout moment. But everybody forgets that the winner was scored by Steve Watkin.
Yeah.
It was Steve Watkin.
And he beat Tony Adams.
Tony Adams. Yeah.
Arguably at that time the best central defender in the English game, and he beat him.
Yeah, I think if his lad is a fraction of the player he was, then we've potentially got a good one for the future there. So yeah, nice little full circle moment, that, to be fair.
Fingers crossed he does actually, be able to, it would be great to see another Watkin on the Racecourse.
Oh God, yeah,
it really, really would.
Absolutely,
that'd be absolutely brilliant. Wrexham women apparently had a behind the closed doors friendly last week versus Nottingham Forest women on Sunday, but no idea of the lineup or the score. There is absolutely no information. So again, Wrexham media team, well done, gold scar for you for giving us the information. Maybe there is a reason behind it. There were a number of trialists and they didn't want to broadcast it. Who knows? But he could have just told us the score. I mean, it would have just been nice to know what the score was.
Again, that we said this last week. That's what is annoying. I can totally understand if they want to try and, because we've seen this week with the player releases and the new contracts that have been offered. Obviously, you've got Jenny Sugarman has come in, and there's an awful lot going on. So I can understand, if I don't necessarily agree with it, but I can understand if they want to try and keep things sort of under wraps while she finds her feet and builds the squad to what she wants. However, like you just said, if the team are involved in any kind of a game, why not just, even after the game, if they don't want people to turn up, just put something out there to say, oh, the women's team played a behind closed doors game today against da 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 da. There were several trialists or several new, potential new players playing in the game. The score was, these were the scorers. You don't have to say much more than that, but why it has to be kept so cloak and dagger is just beyond me. I don't know. It's crazy.
Well, Wrexham AFC have confirmed the retained release list for Wrexham AFC women this week ahead of the 2025-26 season, according to the Wrexham AFC website. Rebecca Pritchard, who scored that fantastic goal against Britain Ferry Llansamble at Latham Park, which secured Wrexham's place in the top flight of Welsh football, has departed the club upon expiry of her contract. Pritchard, who was part of the original Welsh Premier League side of Wrexham women back in 2014-2015, rejoined the club in 2021 and made 95 appearances in total upon her return, which included scoring that first goal in the Gennaro Adrian Premier at the Rock against Swansea City in September 2023. Amber Lightfoot will also depart the club, ending a 4-season association, which started out with Wrexham's title-winning under-19 side, playing alongside Lily Jones for both the under-19s and the first team. Lightfoot was named Players Player of the Season in 2023, alongside being awarded the Gennaro Adrian North Young Player of the Season. In total, she recorded 91 first-team appearances, scoring 45 goals. Finally, Wrexham AFC women's longest-serving player Katie Sharp, defender, will depart the club following 83 competitive appearances alongside 8 goals. This defender was much-loved character within the squad, making 28 appearances in the Gennaro Adrian Premier, scoring a crucial goal to equalise in the Red Dragon dramatic 3-2 cross-border victory over TNS in January 2024. Additionally, of course, Brooke Cairns has already departed the club in the summer to take up a new opportunity with Burnley. So the list at the moment that has been released: Lily Jones is already under contract and she's been offered a new contract for 25-26. Also been offered contracts, and here we go, for the first time this season, you can all have a laugh. Abby Idenden, I said that slowly. Ava Suckley, Cara Jones, Erin Lovett, Karen Allen, Liz Craven, Mary Gibbard, Natalie Clark, Phoebe Davis and Rosie Hughes. Continuing their current recovery from injury with the club are Olivia Fuller, Louisa Doran and TJ Dickens. And of course, goalkeeper Del Morgan has retired. Jamie, when you look at the people there that have been offered contracts who are not injured, you've got just about enough to fill the field and nothing else. How much recruitment do the women need to make now over the next few weeks to be able to bolster that squad and get them ready for Premier League action? Yeah,
they need a good few number of bodies in through the door, don't they? It's really tricky, isn't it, to kind of comment on this, because it's similar to like the men's team where there are players there that you'd name that have left, who it's sad to see them go because they've played a big part in what the Wrexham women have done over the last few years, like with the men's side. However, we don't know the ins and outs, do we? We don't know whether this is. You have to remember that you're talking about semi-pro contracts here, so that there may be financial. There might be like financial restrictions that these players maybe just can't afford to do this anymore or whatever. So you don't know if it's the player that have made the decision. You don't know if it's the club have decided to go in a different direction. Obviously, you've got to give the new manager carte blanche to do whatever she feels is right for the football club moving forward. So how much influence or how much of a decision is down to her, we don't know. It's always sad when you see players that have contributed leave. But yes, to answer your question, I think assuming all those players that have been offered contracts take them, because as we well know, that there is another another team not too far away who won't hesitate to try and secure the services of good players. So we're making an assumption that those players that have been offered those contracts will take them. But I do expect that Jenny Sugarman will bring in a good number of new faces. I think we said at the time when she was appointed, hopefully because of her connections from her previous jobs and her previous clubs, we might get some good loanees in from, what you would consider, higher clubs, maybe even WSL clubs or whatever. I don't know, but the start of the season will be here before we know it. It's not long now, so they need to crack on. But coming back full circle to what you said at the start, we don't really know what's going on, do we? Because nothing's communicated. So we'll see, I guess, when they roll out for that first game and we see who's wearing a Wrexham shirt.
I think the big one will be that friendly towards the end of August versus Shrewsbury Town. I think that will be the big key because it will be open to the public. There will be Wrexham fans there. That will be the first time really that they've seen the Jenny Sugarman side start to form and evolve. Yeah. So it'll be very interesting to see what changes there are going to be, or whether Jenny's kind of going, well, look, you guys know how to play with each other. The majority of you are still here. Do
you know what though? She might. Her hands might be tied a little bit with regards to how much influence she can, lay into this team, because she's going to need the players she wants to play her system. And if she's struggling to recruit those players, then she's just going to have to, like you say, default to what they know, and it might be a very similar style of play, certainly to start with. But yeah, let's see. When does the season start? Is it the first weekend in September?
7th, 8th. That's 6th, 7th, 8th, somewhere around there, I think.
You think about it, it's the 22nd of August now. It's only a couple of weeks, isn't it? So
Exactly. Yep. Wrexham's continuing 1 in, 2 in, 5 in, 1 out policy continues. Callum Edwards has moved to National League Northside Southport on loan until January. Edwards, 19, has secured his first senior move after joining Cymru Premier side Bala Town last season. The academy graduate has made 11 appearances in all competitions for the Lakesiders, scoring in his first goal against Penabont. Bala Town versus Penabont, there's a game. He also made the Wrexham AFC bench last season in our Virtue Trophy group stage clash against Port Vale. But of course, as one goes out, that makes just about enough room to squeeze in a couple of more players. And thankfully, because we're live, Wrexham, you haven't caught us out this week because you tried to announce it after we normally record. So we caught you out this week. Yes, Wrexham AFC are delighted to announce the signing of 2 players. 1 player we've already mentioned, of course, and 1 player that's only been mentioned in the last 24 hours. Nathan Broadhead, of course, from Ipswich Town for an undisclosed fee. Reported to be north of 7 million, apparently. Obviously, the Cymru international and former Wrexham Academy player returns to the club on a 4-year deal until the end of 2028-29. Broadhead is a 3-time promotion winner, with his most recent coming for Ipswich. He scored 13 goals on their way to the Premier League in 2024. The Bangor-born forward began his youth career at Bangor City before moving to the Wrexham Academy and subsequently Everton. He spent 15 years with the Toffees, making his debut in 2017 in the UEFA Europa League, where he assisted the winning goal against Apollon Limassol. While with Everton, he made a number of EFL loan moves, starting at Burton Albion in 2019-2020. He made his Premier League debut for Everton in 2020-2021. The following season, while on loan with Sunderland, secured his first career promotion, scoring 10 goals in 20 appearances in League One. He started 22-23 season on loan at Wigan Athletic before a permanent switch to Ipswich Town in the January, where he scored 8 goals and helped them to the EFL Championship promotion. He also scored, obviously, on his Cymru debut, playing for the national side during that season with a vital equaliser during the UEFA 2024 Euro qualifying campaign versus Croatia. Broadhead helps Ipswich Town end their 22-year exile from the Premier League as they finished runners-up in the Championship the following year, securing back-to-back promotions. He subsequently made 18 appearances in the top flight last season before now departing Portman Road and becoming our 9th signing. Just saying that is crazy. Our 9th signing this year. Our 10th signing, we're delighted to welcome Callum Doyle from Manchester City for an undisclosed fee. Again, reported to be north of £8 million. According to the Wrexham AFC website, Doyle arrives at the Stoke Kairos on another 4-year deal until the end of the 28-29 season. The 21-year-old centre-back lifted the 2022 UEFA European Under-19 Championships with England, scoring the opening goal in their 3-1 victory against Israel. He also made 23 appearances for Leicester City's 23-24 championship winning campaign under Enzo Mascarera. I can never say the name. Enzo Mascarera? Mascarera?
I think your first attempt was the closest.
Thank you very much. I'm terrible with names that are complicated. Doyle started his youth career with Man City, but has made more than 150 professional appearances across the Championship and League One. At 17, the left-sided centre-back made his first loan move to Sunderland during 21-22, where he won promotion to the Championship. He featured 36 times for the Black Cats in total, including in the playoff final against Wycombe Wanderers. His success that summer continued as Doyle played that integral part in England's 2022 UEFA European Under-19s Championship winning squad out in Slovakia. The following campaign, Doyle joined Coventry City in the EFL Championship, making 42 appearances in their run to the playoff final. In 23-24, the promising talent joined Leicester, where he battled through injury to bolster the Foxes' defence as they went on to win the Championship. Last season, Doyle joined Norwich City on loan, adding 7 assists from defence in yet another impressive season for the England Under-21 international. Right, that was a mouthful. Let's talk about Broadhead first. Just wanted to point out, great tweet from Dan Wrexham, shouting out to you. Apparently, Wrexham now have the 29th highest net spend in world football this transfer window, just behind, wait for it, Inter Milan.
The thing is, the thing is, I saw that, and it's a great fact. It is a great fact, right? And like everybody else, I've seen, read, witnessed all the continued hatred and vitriol towards Wrexham and what we're doing and ruining football and Disney FC and all this shite. But I posted yesterday and I said, one thing which a lot of people outside of the Wrexham camp completely overlook and completely forget is when you actually consider the revenue that the football club is generating, this spending is proportionate. This is not, to us, this is absolutely nuts what we're seeing this summer. Absolutely crazy to be seeing not only the quantity of players that we've brought in, the caliber of players we've brought in, and then now the money, the collective amount of money that we're spending is, I never thought I would see days like this at all. You know, and I'm sure there's not.
I'm just gonna be that person in the party, the one you don't want to stand with and talk to.
The dick, not like
the
you.
Dick. That's the one. That's the one. Are we spending too much? Are we going too far? Are we putting ourselves at risk of having boom and bust?
I mean, ultimately, it's not for me or you or anyone else to say, is it? You know, the club. It's for the club to decide what budget, what money, what funds they want to allocate. Are we spending too much? I like I say, for me, I would say no, because I feel that the spending that we've made so far is proportionate when you consider the kind of revenues that we're generating these days. You're right with what you're saying about, you know, and I think that's the Wrexham pessimist in you, which is understandable because we've probably all got it in us a little bit. You know, there is an element of you which is thinking, Jesus Christ, we've given out 4-year contracts here to, you know, Nathan Broadhead, for example. He's not going to be on small amounts of money. You know, he's come from Ipswich, who were in the Premier League last season. You know, our wage bill this summer must have gone through the roof because these players will be on some serious money. Like I've said many times before, that's not of my concern. You know, I know we had this conversation about a while ago, didn't we? About what I think it was when Jay Rodriguez signed, and there was reports that he was on 15 grand a week and this, that, and the other. It's none of my business. It's none of your business. It's none of nobody's business. You know, what the employer decides to pay the employee is between them, not me and you, and it's not my money. What you do hope is that the club are doing what they said they would do, which is building a sustainable football club. And that's what they're trying to do, isn't it? You know, and so far you would say that they are doing. I mean, it's going to be interesting the next couple of years. Forget even any talk about Premier League, but I'm just talking about the fact that once you've spent the money on the infrastructure of the COP, whatever they end up doing, training ground, these are going to be some big checks to be written, and obviously to stay being competitive, to stay being keep us in the Championship, we're going to need to continue to build and invest in our playing squad, so. When you look at the caliber of these players, it's unbelievable, and it's just got better and better and better. I mean, the Nathan Broadhead one, it was the worst kept secret in the world, wasn't it? But when it was finally announced, when it was finally announced,
I imagine they had to probably tie him to a chair at Portland Road, basically stopping trying to run out the door because he was desperate to get out. He really was. And
that's a testament to he wants to be he wants to kind of come back to where it started for him and play a part in this next part. Either that or he just really wants a trip to Vegas. But to be fair, that you can't underestimate the caliber of that signing. This is somebody that obviously we know very well because we've seen him play in a Welsh shirt. This is somebody that the type of player that I've craved, which is somebody that can change games. He's good on the ball. Offensively, he's brilliant. He's got that bit of pace. He can finish. Granted, he couldn't finish.
You could see that on Saturday, just the glimmers of the start of, when he was starting to make space and starting to make. I mean, the guy literally hadn't taken his coat off.
No,
and he was shoved into the 11 and saying, "Go out there and try and make a difference." I mean, he barely probably known half our players' names, so it must have been so difficult for him. But you could see the kind of diamond in the rough that you kind of thinking he's going to be good.
This is why I said before, when we were talking about the West Brom game, that little move where he had that chance in the start of the second half, that little move, that just is enough to show you what is going to happen, what's going to happen when this lot click. You're dead right. He'd only been through the door, 24 hours before. Probably didn't even know the names of everybody, but he was thrown in a little bit at the deep end, and he did all right. He did set the world on fire, but he did all right. I think the main thing for me with the Broadhead signing was just a little bit of a head scratcher on how Parky fits all these in, because for me, him and Josh Windass are very, very similar type of players. Now, as much as I would love to say, given the system we play, I'd love to be in a situation where we're going to be talking about having Windass and Broadhead playing off Kiefer Moore. That would be epic from an offensive point of view. But then defensively, I'm not quite sure what that does to us. So that's the interesting bit, is how these two will play in the same team in the next 4 to 6 weeks. It's not really a problem, is it? Because he is basically just a like for like replacement for Windass. But yeah, as a signing on, on its own right, it's unbelievable. It's something I never thought I'd be seeing signings like that coming through the door. Days of us paying, like you say, reportedly 7 million quid up front for him, potentially rising up to 10. Although Parky did joke about that, didn't he? Saying that
we'd have to win the Premier League and the Champions League, I believe. You never know. You never say never. Never say never.
Hey, never. If the last few years have taught us anything, it's to not rule anything out. But no, brilliant signing. But for me, this one yesterday, Callum Doyle, that for me is Rolls Royce signing. That is
absolutely.
I've seen this lad play a couple of times. I've heard people talking about him. He is a Rolls Royce of a player, and the fact that we have brought in a 21-year-old player who's got nearly 100 championship games under his belt already, from Manchester City, who are arguably, the biggest football club in the country. I'm not saying I think they are, arguably. The fact that we've been able to get ahead of other teams, I think Rangers was mentioned as a possible destination for him. I know the likes of Coventry. I've read a few comments from Coventry fans, because obviously he was there on loan. They're very disappointed that they couldn't entice him. But he for me, from what I've seen of him, unbelievable signing, absolutely unbelievable signing. I feel a bit for.
Sorry to interrupt you for a second.
Right.
It's a real statement of intent, isn't it? Because this lad is 21. He's signed on a 4-year deal. Yeah. That is the club saying, this is our future, right? This is part of our future right here. And we're going in at the top. We're not building We're not trying to bring somebody through and trying to put them into a position. We're getting proven playability at this level, and we're putting them straight in there.
The crazy thing about this is that, what did you say? That's 9 signings, isn't it, so far? So
10
signings, and 10 real top draw signings. And again, without bringing other names into the mix at this stage until something is announced. But there are another couple of names doing the rounds, which are just ludicrous.
Jordan James, I saw today again.
That's that seems to be one that's very it's not going away, shall we say?
Obviously, I've watched him play for Cymru. He is a midfield maestro. He's an absolute belter.
Yeah. Again, another would be another incredible signing. But the crazy thing about all this is, even if we brought in before the end of the transfer window, if we brought in, say, another 2 bodies and we make it 12 signings, you'd look at that and you'd think, Christ, we at that point we would have potentially spent between 30 and 40 million quid, depending on add-ons and stuff like that. Brought in, 11, 12 new players, and you'd look at that and you'd think, Jesus Christ, the whole posts on X of HMS pissed the league will be everywhere because people will think, oh, we're going to win the league. But the reality is all this does is gives us a stepping stone for the future, because this is just building a squad that's required in the Championship. This is not just necessarily going to mean straight away we're going to be getting another promotion. Again, I wouldn't rule anything out, but all this is the start of building a Championship squad that we are going to need over the next 2 or 3 seasons to then eventually have a go at the Premier League. I think what you do have to say is credit to Rob and Ryan for signing this off. I know it's not directly their money, it's not them putting their hand in their pocket, obviously, but the fact they will have had to have signed this off. And I know there's that sort of famous story from this last couple of weeks of Mike Williamson had sat down with them at the end of last season, had the conversation and said, well, this is a budget for survival, this is a budget for mid-table, this is a budget for playoffs. And apparently Rob's response was, what's the budget for top 2? So, I think I made a joke yesterday when we signed Callum Doyle that when he said he doesn't know the meaning of the word consolidation, I think he genuinely meant it. But I think we do have to keep a bit of a reality check with all this. As fantastic as all this is, these are 10, 11, 12 signings. This doesn't mean we are suddenly overnight an automatic promotion contender at all.
Absolutely
what this does hopefully do is it gives us a good foundation to continue to build a Championship squad.
Totally.
And at the very least, it gives us enough tools to hopefully mean we can maintain our position in the Championship, which is what we want. But yeah, unbelievable. The transfer window has just been crazy, absolutely crazy.
We're going to talk next week, obviously, because obviously, there are squad limits in the Championship, which we all know about, and now we have an abundance of players, far too many for the seats that are available. So we'll talk next week about who has to leave. But the one question I was going to ask you is, are you expecting more players to come in before that window closes in what was probably about 8 or 9 days' time?
Well, when we got to about 6 signings, I wasn't necessarily expecting any more, but then we're now up to 10. And what I've learned through this transfer window where Wrexham's concerned is I know we seem to get linked to everybody, Steve the Bricky from the White Lion is getting a move, and we could probably get linked with him. We seem to get linked with everybody just because it's clickbait, isn't it? It's for a lot of people, if they mention the name Wrexham in a conversation about a player, it'll generate interest. But what I will say is that, or what I have personally found from this transfer window, is there's been an awful lot of noise being made around players that have actually come to fruition, and they've, noises about Kiefer Moore, noise about Nathan Broadhead, that Callum Doyle one. There was talk of that sort of 2 or 3 days before it was officially kind of confirmed. So you'd have to work on the basis, and Parky himself has come out and said that, I think in this post-match interview last week, he kind of intimated that they were still looking at another couple. Obviously, Doyle's come in now. At the minute, the Jordan James one is the one that's really kind of is exciting, I think, isn't it? Although I think we are just single-handedly trying to sign all the Welsh first team at the minute.
Yes.
The challenge is if you bring him in and potentially another one, is the challenge is where do these players fit in? Because it's like, you know, with the exception of probably Ryan Hardy and George Thomason we got from Bolton, with the exception of those two, I think the rest of them you would look at as stat signings, and you would probably say they are nailed on starters.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
well, you do. Well, let me put it this way: do you pay £7 million or £8 million for a player to sit on the bench? No, you don't.
Not at the stage we're at. I think, you know, when you're a full on established championship club and you're up towards the top of the league and you're fighting for playoffs and promotions every season, then the sad reality is that's the field we're playing on now. In the championship, you are talking about signing players for 5, 6, 7, 10 million quid who are going to be just fringe players. But for us at this stage, no, Christ, I would say the likes of, like say, Broadhead and you know, Callum Doyle and people like that. Surely to God, these are nailed on starters. You know, even the likes of Josh Windass. Actually, I know he's injured, and I know we didn't pay a fee for him, but I think the fact we didn't pay a fee for him, we will have put together a very lucrative package for him. We wouldn't be bringing him in to sit on the bench if he's fit. So, yeah, it's going to be. I mean, as exciting as this transfer window's been, I really wish they'd look at the parameters of it and close it before the season starts, because it must be a bloody nightmare for managers, you know, who are buying and selling. It must be an absolute bloody nightmare. But you know, the fact that we could be having this conversation, I mean, it's still another 2 weeks open, isn't it? The fact we could be having this conversation in 2 weeks' time and talking about
8 days. You know, it's 8 days to go.
So,
it's a week on Monday, I think. I believe is the closing at midday or something like that. I believe
the fact we could be having this conversation in a week or two's time and talking about another couple of players coming in is absolutely crackers. But yeah, it's proper pinch me stuff. This is, you know, when you're talking about these players that we're signing, absolutely crazy. But to be fair as well, you do have to also, and I know it's been said a million times, but you do have to also show a bit of empathy towards some of these players that are just being cast aside. And sadly, it's the harsh reality of football. You know, there's so many players who will forever be held in high regard, you know, amongst the Wrexham fan base, but now are just, you know, complete surplus to requirements. You know, I watched Mullin play in the week for Wigan, and I felt, I mean, he's been getting some right pelters as well by some of the fans. I watched him play, and I just like, this doesn't look right, but it was 100% the right thing to do, because I watched him in that game, and he struggled to have an impact in that game, and that's a League One, you know, mid-tier League One game. So it was absolutely the right thing to do. But yeah, it doesn't stop it being painful.
It doesn't at all. You watch it, and you the important thing is to remember the good times.
Yeah,
and what he did for the club, and what he did for us fans, and not look at the, you know. And
surely as well, before the transfer window closes, we're going to see quite a few more that'll be leaving. That we're going to have to, because at the minute we've got, I think we must have something like 30, 35 first team players on the books at the minute. Well, you know, do the maths. You know, we can only have 25 registered for the squad. Even if you kept a couple, you know, just on the peripherals for training purposes, or as back, you know, emergency backup or whatever, there's got to be a good 5 or 6 players that have got to go out the door before the transfer window ends. You know, I know there's rumours doing the rounds, but there seems to be a lot more significant incoming than outgoing. But surely that's going to change.
And it'll move quite fast, because you've got 24 hours after the window opens to declare your 25-person squad. So you won't have long. And you'll have to make those decisions. So, yeah, it will all happen very, very fast, to say the least.
Yep, absolutely.
throw open the doors and release the ants. It's time for the chip shop. Jamie is running solo tonight, so it's extra chips for everyone. Nothing on last week's predictions because none of us got any of them right, thanks to Sheffield Wednesday winning. So it's as you were with Jamie still.
West Brom.
Sorry, thank you. It's one of those nights, as you can tell. Jamie's still top of the league, obviously, which is great for him. I'm second, and Daz sitting in a lowly third. So,
Beautiful.
First into the fryer tonight, it's Sheffield Wednesday. Sheffield Wednesday will be at the Stoke Kairos this Saturday, 23rd of August. Kick-off, thankfully, at 3 p.m. BST, standard traditional. Sheffield Wednesday are the fifth oldest Football League club in the world. Last year, they started well and by Christmas were in contention for playoffs in the Championship, but dropped off before the end of the season, finishing 12th in the Championship with 15 wins, 13 draws and 18 losses, a goal difference of -9 and 58 points. However, over the summer and what has been building for a while, they have had an absolutely torrid time as their owner, Dafon Chansiri, has begun to falter with regards to paying staff and keeping the upkeep of the ground, to the point where they are now under a 3-window transfer ban until January 2027. Wednesday fans have had to band together to raise money to pay backroom staff because the staff have been paid intermittently. A lot of the players obviously have triggered the fact that after not being paid for so many consecutive months, they can null and void their contract. One of them, of course, was to the advantage of Wrexham, with Josh Windass coming to us from Sheffield Wednesday. But a number of other players have also moved to other clubs, stripping Sheffield Wednesday of some of their most valuable and influential players. Something, as a football fan, regardless of whether I was a Sheffield Wednesday fan or not, I find incredibly sad to see, because that is the gutting of a football club without any rhyme or reason due to the bad management of one single person. Last week, Sheffield Wednesday lost to Leicester City 2-1 away, drew 3-3 with League One players, a League One team, Bolton Wanderers, in the Cup. But won on penalties 4-2 and then lost 3-0 at home to Stoke City. Transfers, obviously, they're limited on what they can bring in. They're allowed to bring in anything that doesn't involve paying a transfer fee. So they obviously lost their manager quite early on. They've lost 14 players, including Josh Windass to us. They signed 7, but they're all under 21 or under 18 players for no fee. They recalled Kadamadri from Lincoln City and Fusere from Carlisle United. And the chips are done. Very, very sad state of affairs. We've been there, Jamie. We know exactly what it's like. Thankfully, in a move today, because originally, obviously Sheffield Wednesday want to make a protest, which absolutely they should. We as Wrexham fans are 100% behind them. And a great thing that has been put forward by the Phyllis and Devotion guys today is everybody who's going to the game tomorrow, which will include myself, get your gold shirts out of the locker, put them on, because it's black and gold until it's sold. And that's how we're going to help get behind the Sheffield Wednesday fans, as well as, thankfully now, originally they wanted to take in a protest banner or a number of protest banners into the ground, and they were told by Wrexham FC that they were not allowed because they were not allowed to have any political statements, which is the biggest load of crap I have ever heard in my life. Thankfully, due to fan pressure and due to the pressure of the Wrexham Supporters Trust, who again were key at spearheading our fight against Hamilton and Gutterman when we were in trouble, the club have finally U-turned and said, okay, no problem, of course we support you, you bring your banners in when you're ready. Jamie, let's talk about the what's going on around Sheffield Wednesday first before we talk about the game. It's a desperately sad situation. I've heard this week their number 1 goalkeeper has been sold. Their number 2 keeper is injured. They are running around and apparently have sold a keeper, I believe, from Cardiff City on an emergency loan with 24 hours notice. I mean, it doesn't get worse than that, does it? I feel my heart absolutely bleeds for the fans.
rivalry and banter in football is one of the things that makes it what it is. I think done right, there's nothing better than for an hour and a half on a Saturday afternoon, supporting your team and having that banter back and two with opposing fans. Sometimes it can cross a line, and we've seen that over the years. However, sometimes it's important that all those things are put to one side when things like this happen. And I think, as a fan base, we can empathize with what they're going through at the minute more than most, because of what we had to deal with the shithouse that was Alex Hamilton. What is happening at Sheffield Wednesday is a crime. Is
crime.
An absolute
That's
crime.
Exactly the word. Absolutely.
What really boils my piss is, look, if the guy bought it and he put money into it and he's tried to make it work and it's not worked out, then sell it and move on. But what really boils my piss is when you listen to some, I've listened to a few podcasts this week with Sheffield Wednesday fans on, and they explain the fact that he has been made offers for the club. He's been made fair offers for the football club, but he has got this figure in his mind. And unless somebody's prepared to pay him this figure, which by all accounts is completely unreasonable, he's not prepared to sell it. But to literally be destroying the football club is an absolute crime. And what really, really grates is it's horrible when when all these dodgy underhand things are happening with, like, selling the ground to himself. You're selling the ground to himself to try and evade, tax and pay this and everything else, and selling off assets, and players not being paid, staff not being paid. And that's the big one for me. You are talking here about staff at a football club that it is their job, it's their livelihood. These people will have mortgages to pay. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that the footballing staff themselves are immune to it, because they're not going to be earning the sort of money that Premier League footballers earn, but I'm sure they earn a decent income. But when you're talking about kit men, retail staff, cleaners, canteen staff, these people won't be earning huge amounts of money. And the fact that these people are not getting paid, not just once, but multiple months on the trot is a criminal. It is criminal.
And particularly when you hear of then Chansiri being in a top London hotel restaurant with a group of his friends having expensive meals, you kind of go, well, look, I can't stop you spending your money how you want, but how do you sleep at night? How does your conscience, when you know what you're doing to the club that you own, and therefore to the staff and to the players, and more importantly to the fans who, and I remember this feeling, you feel like because you have no control over what is happening to the club that you have followed for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, you can just feel that club being slowly ripped from your soul, and you feel helpless because you can't do anything about it.
Unfortunately, he's the polar opposite of what we're very fortunate to have as owners now, who have, when I say invested in the club, I'm not talking about from a monetary point of view. They have bought into the history, the heritage, the ethos of the club and the community, and it's ingrained in them now. And unfortunately, there are too many owners in football that are not like that, and it's just an asset. It's just a commodity. It's just business, and football isn't just a business. It really isn't. It's the as we well know, it's the heart and soul of these communities up and down the country and around the world. And to see.
Sheffield Wednesday is as I said, fifth oldest club in the world. They're one of the original members of the Football League. They are part of world football heritage. To have this done to a club, any club, is bad enough. But to have them done to a giant like Sheffield Wednesday is absolutely appalling. It
is. It's terrible. But do you know what? I've been unbelievably proud of our fan base these last few days, and how they've rallied behind Sheffield Wednesday's situation. Like I said before, very much rivalries put to one side. Yes, there is a football match that will be taking place, but I think the way the Wrexham fans have remembered what we've been through as a fan base and as a football club, and have rallied behind what Sheffield Wednesday are trying to do. Unfortunately, like you said, the club very nearly shot themselves massively in the foot today with the whole banning of the banners in the ground.
Can I just stop you? This is the good thing about being live, because normally we can't do this, but literally a tweet's just come out. So Rob Mack has tweeted saying there are 10,000 more gold shirts available. The profits from any gold shirt purchased between now and Monday will go to Sheffield Wednesday Supporters Trust. So if you buy a gold shirt, if you've not got one and you've ever wanted to get one, now is the perfect time, because all the proceeds on the profit, from that will go to Sheffield Wednesday Supporters Trust. That right there, Jamie, what you were saying just then about our polar opposites is our owner saying we need to support these guys. Yes, when you cross the line, we're two teams against each other, but when we're off the pitch, we need to stand together in solidarity against bad owners.
That tweet and that gesture is incredible, but it's not surprising, is it? It's not surprising. We've become accustomed to both Rob and Ryan showing their humility and things. But what I found really interesting about that tweet, there's two elements to it. Is one, it's a great example of when Rob and Ryan say they do not get involved in the football operations of the club. That's a great example, because obviously somebody within the club who is in the structure has made that decision earlier in the day, and he has now got wind of it because there's been such a big outcry. And I dare say has picked up the phone or dropped an email to somebody and said, "What are you doing?" But I dare say when that initial announcement was made, he probably didn't even know about it. The fact that he's done that is incredible. But I think what this also tells us is, I think going forward, until we have got a competent communications department and people to make competent decisions, I suggest maybe what the football club do is sit down, and before they make any decisions, sit and say, what would Rob do? I think that's probably the best way to approach it going forward, because it was very nearly a massive own goal. To claim that they were banning it because it was a political message. It's absolute nonsense. Absolute nonsense.
And what really insulted me about that is the fact that we've been there. The fans unfurled banners in our own ground and other grounds. When Brighton and Hove Albion came to visit us, they unfurled a banner in support of our side, our team, to get our bad owner out. So we've had those banners for our benefits. So then to turn around and say we can't allow it because it's a political statement, it's just a massive amount of hypocrisy for me.
Unfortunately, it is another one of those scenarios, and we have had a few in recent years where we've shot ourselves in the foot a little bit. Thankfully, common sense has prevailed. They've reversed it, changed their mind, whatever you want to say. And the most important thing, and yes, it's not a great look that we've had to kind of go through all this rigmarole today, but the most important thing is that it's been reversed, and that tomorrow the Sheffield Wednesday fans can attend the game, and they can, I have no doubt that all the protests, all the things that they have planned to do before, during, and after the game will all be peaceful. There'll be no animosity, there'll be no trouble or anything like that. And the fact that they can now do that in the way that they see fit to try and get as much exposure and as many eyes on their situation as possible. And now the fact that us as a fan base can stand side by side with them. Like I say, yes, there is a football game going on, and it is an important football game. But the fact that we can now stand side by side with them is great. And I think hopefully what 12 hours ago was a real shitty situation that we were getting involved in, hopefully now will turn tomorrow into a really good situation. The fact that Rob is inadvertently or what is now aware of this situation, I am sure that in the next 24, 48 hours, both him and Ryan will probably throw some weight behind the campaign. And that's what they need, isn't it? That's what they need. They need support, and they need eyes on it. And hopefully this absolute criminal crook shithouse will get out of their club and will get out of football and go back to whatever rock he crawled on from under, and they'll get some owners in who can actually take take the football club forward and bring it back to what it should be, which is exactly like you said. They are a staple of British football, and they should be there, right up there. So, hopefully it will sort itself out very quickly.
And it does work, because great news this week that Morecambe have finally been sold to Punjab Warriors. So finally, they've got some stability. The National League have cleared them to now start their campaign. They can begin in National League to start rebuilding their clubs. I mean, and that was down to, pressure from fans, press, their MP getting involved, fundraisers, selling shirts, national campaigns. Obviously at some point, the pressure hopefully got too much, and he just said, you know what? Okay, let's just sell.
Like you say, the most important thing is it's resolved and they can now move forward. But again, sadly, it's the latest example, isn't it? It's the latest in a long line of examples where this keeps happening and things have got to be done. I mean, I know that there's this new the ombudsman thing that's being brought in. Hopefully these things will start to have an impact and stop these things happening. But it's all too familiar, isn't it? We've seen it over the years. We went through it and very nearly went out of business. Look at what's happening with Sheffield Wednesday. Morecambe, Bury. Bury. That was a stalwart community football club. A football club that was in the heart of a community that was surrounded by massive football clubs, and yet that the fact that closed and went out of existence. Okay, it's come back, but it went out of existence is a criminal. And do you know what? All these things, I hate having to see football clubs and fan bases going through this. But what this always does remind me is not only how lucky we are to be in the situation we are with Rob and Ryan, but every other football fan and every other fan base who gives Wrexham shit about the way that we do things needs to have a serious look as to how these guys operate as football club owners. Because I tell you what, there's a lot of other football club owners that could learn a lot from them.
Absolutely. Let's look at the game rather than the play that's around it. Difficult for Sheffield Wednesday tomorrow. I mean, they are absolutely stripped to the bone. Many of their players are under 21, under 18s. They've got some seniors, but obviously those seniors, play from the start. But their bench is decimated. I don't think they even have a full bench unless they roll out the academy players completely. We're obviously a side that is gelling, and we're starting to make our moves, but. Jamie, how important is it that we leave sentiment to one side, because this is a competitive sport, and at the end of the day, results do mean things.
I'm although it's a very unique situation, it absolutely the ongoings on the pitch can very much be detached from what's going on off the pitch. I am convinced that there won't be. Parky will not allow any sentiment or anything like that. You can't. And you know what? I think if you were being brutally honest and you asked Sheffield Wednesday fans, they wouldn't want that either. They wouldn't want teams going easy on them or doing something different. If they're going to suffer this season, and if they end up, if this isn't resolved in a timely manner and they end up getting relegated, whatever, they won't hold any grudges against any other.
They want to fight. They'll want to fight, don't they?
Of course they do. Yeah. I mean, what's really interesting about the game is I watched their first game of the season against Leicester. So they play Leicester away, and you know what? I was absolutely blown away.
Yeah.
I was blown away by how well they played. Now, what was apparent in that game, and then what has become evident since, and listening to some of the Sheffield Wednesday fans that have been on some of the other pods, I think what their problem is they. Barring injuries, because they had a couple of bad injuries as well in the last couple of weeks, which isn't great when they've got such a small squad. But barring injuries, they have actually got a reasonably good 1-11 and can play well. The issue is they haven't got the depth. They haven't got the strength and depth, and because they didn't really have much of a pre-season, they haven't physically, the fitness isn't at the level that they probably need. So I think what happened in that Leicester game, which I saw, was when you got to sort of 65 minutes, it fizzled out. Their players were struggling with fitness, and they didn't have the depth to bring people off the bench that could impact the game. And unfortunately, it pitted out and they ended up losing the game 2-1. I think they then they lost to Stoke last week, didn't they?
3-0, yeah.
By all accounts, again, from what I read and what I heard, I don't think the result necessarily was a fair reflection on how they performed. And then I think they beat Bolton in the cup, didn't they, on penalties, 3-3 draw, and then beat them on penalties. So I don't think you can read too much into that. But I think from our perspective, I'm not going to use the term must win because we're three. This is the third game of the season. You can't be talking about must wins. But I think, given the circumstances of their situation, the fact that we're at home, the fact that we've played reasonably well in the first two league games of the season we've had, I do think this is quite an important game for us to win. Not the end of the world if we don't. Look, it's not the end of the world. We're way too early in the season to be starting to press panic buttons. But I do think for a number of reasons, it would be good all round for us if we can get a win and get the first 3 points of the season this Saturday. And that's what I expect to see, to be fair.
So remember, if you've got your black and gold Wrexham shirts, get them out. Even if you're not going to the game, if you're watching from home, wherever you are in the world, put that black and gold shirt on, wear it with pride, tweet it out. Tweet out the message, black and gold until it's sold, and hashtag Sheffield Wednesday Supporters Trust. Make sure that everybody knows that we are totally behind Sheffield Wednesday fans at a massively difficult time.
Sadly, I'm photographing a wedding, so I can't wear my gold shirt because I think I'd be... I'm not quite sure I'd get away with that, but yeah.
But make sure you do. Get on social media, put a message far and wide. Let's make this a big thing and really show our support. So, time for the salt, vinegar and sauce Koch. Jamie, what's your score prediction for Wrexham versus Sheffield Wednesday?
So I'm going for a 3-1 Wrexham win. I'm still a little bit doubtful at the moment based on what we've seen of our ability to keep a clean sheet. And from what I've seen of Sheffield Wednesday, they have got some threats. So I am gonna say that they will score a goal, but I think we'll have a bit too much for them over the course of the game, and I think we'll win 3-1.
And I'm predicting Wrexham 2, Sheffield Wednesday 1. I still think that we've got some work to do, and I still think that we, have, particularly defensively, we're trying to shore up and we're trying to stay tight. Sheffield Wednesday, even in their dilapidated state at the moment, they're no mugs. And they're not to be taken for granted. We have to be very, very careful. I can see them scoring first on Saturday. I really can, because they're fighters. But as Jamie said, I think as the match rolls on, I think fatigue will get there. And then the ability of what we can bring on from the bench might make a difference. It'll be very interesting, obviously, to see which of the new players we've signed this week we actually get to see, and how much more of Nathan Broadhead we get to see. So I'm predicting Wrexham 2, Sheffield Wednesday 1. Daz, as you can see, he's not here. He's currently sunning his bits in Europe, but he has sent us a video. Hello, Daz.
The home of Athletic Bilbao. I think a few Spurs fans would remember this place as a successful destination for recent silverware. But for me, I'm here alone because, as you can imagine, in my family, nobody else wants to be here with me looking at an empty football stadium. So I thought I'd use this as an opportunity to send in my predictions. So starting off with Sheffield Wednesday. They've had a turbulent start, well, for the whole few years, to be honest, but I'm not entirely sure that their performance... I do think Wrexham have got a really good chance of doing quite well. It's just whether or not Wrexham can keep a clean sheet, even against a Wednesday team. So, but I think I'm going to go for a prediction of Wrexham 2, Sheffield Wednesday 0, on the basis that Sheffield are up against it, and I think Wrexham are going to look for some upturn in their form. So that's my first prediction.
So let's wrap those chips up to keep them warm. And next is the fryer tonight. It's Preston North End. Preston North End will be visiting Deepdale this next Tuesday, 26th of August. Kickoff 7:45 p.m. BST. Obviously, this is part of the Carabao Cup. Round 1, Preston North End beat Barrow 1-0. Wrexham obviously beat Hull City on penalties. So far, Preston North End in the league have drew 1-1 with Queen's Park Rangers at home, beat Leicester City 2-1 at home. Last year in the Cup, they beat Sunderland 2-0 in round 1, Harrogate Town 5-0 in round 2, drew 1-1 versus Fulham and won, wait for this, and I remember this, 16-15 on penalties in round 3, and then lost 3-0 to Arsenal in round 4. Arsenal obviously going on to the final rounds. And the chips are done. So, Jamie, a trip up to Deepdale, quite a classic one for us. I was a bit disappointed when we pulled Preston North End in the second round of the Cup, but we said the last time when we played Hull in the first round, it was a bit of a free hit. Do you think this one is also a bit of a free hit for us?
Yes, in many ways. I think, like you just said, with the greatest respect to Preston, I was a little bit disappointed as well, purely because I was watching the draw live, and a lot of the teams that I thought, we're going to get them, Stockport came out, Tranmere came out, Bradford came out, and as we were getting towards the end, we still hadn't been pulled out. You still had Man United was still in it, Everton was still in it, there were some big teams, Leeds were still in it, and I'm thinking, we're going to get one of these here. And so to get Preston was a little bit underwhelming, but that's no disrespect to them. Let's not forget they have got the best shirt sponsor this season as Spud Bros.
Spud Bros.
Yeah, and if Spud Bros fancy, an additional sponsorship.
If you want to hook up, guys, chips and baked spuds, they go together like me and cake.
Yeah. No, you're right. It is a bit of a free hit. The difficulty with this is knowing what he'll do with the team again. So I think the tricky bit is it'll depend on what the result is on Saturday. I think if we win against Sheffield Wednesday, and win reasonably, I say comfortably, I'm talking more on the overall performance than necessarily a big score, then I would be fully expecting him to do what he did in the last round, which is make a full team change and have a completely different lineup on the Tuesday. And then the problem is then you don't know what Preston are going to do. If they do what Hull did and only make 3 or 4 changes and put out a reasonably strong side, then we could be in for a very difficult night. So it is really difficult. It's always difficult predicting the second game of 2, but with the Cup, it's very difficult. I think Parky will still want to win it. And like I've said a million times before, for me personally, given the number of players we've got in our squad, I want to stay in this competition as long as possible. Because it's an opportunity to give competitive minutes to players who are not going to get too close to the first team from a league perspective. But also, wouldn't it be great to be able to get Everton away, Man United away, Leeds away, or something like that? Just from a spectacle point of view.
And don't forget, in the next round, the 9 Premier League clubs who aren't in this round, who are in Europe, come into it. So you suddenly got Chelsea and Liverpool and Man City and all those as well.
I mean, Liverpool would be great because it'd be great just to have a week of giving Daz shit on here, wouldn't it? But no, for me, I only want to stay in it just because I think it's if we could get a couple more rounds out of it, I think it's going to be good for our squad, keeping our squad fresh and fit. But it's for this game, it's really difficult to predict what's going to happen because we've no idea how Parky will approach it and things like that. Tough test, Tuesday night going away. I think we will take a good support, but with it being a cup game, it's going to probably be less than a league game. It's not too far away. I would have loved to have gone, but again, I'm working unfortunately on Tuesday, so it's another game I'll have to watch on repeat. Yeah, tough one to predict for many reasons, really. But I don't think it'll be a walk in the park, whatever team we put out.
So time for the salt, vinegar and sauce cork. I'm going to make my prediction first. I'm going to predict Preston North End 2, Wrexham 1. I think Parky will make changes to the squad. I think my son's just coming in. I'll charge it. Thank you very much. Live, and that's live, everybody. That's live. He's just giving me his iPad saying charge it.
That's the same noise I make when I run out of battery on my iPad as well.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely. I think Wrexham are going to. I think Parky's going to change on the squad. It's going away to Preston North End, who are no mugs themselves. They're quite established. I think it's going to be tough to play on a Tuesday night as well. I just feel that Wrexham are going to misfire a little bit. They will score, but I think they will lose 2-1. Jamie, what's your prediction for Preston North End versus Wrexham?
Yeah, so if I'm having to guess, I think Parky will go for the full change again. So I think we'll see a team closer to what played against Hull. And because we're away from home, and if you look at how we played in that game, I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw and then Preston to win on penalties. So if I get this right, I deserve about 1 million points because that's a very specific prediction.
It is. It's very specific. Obviously, Daz needs to make his prediction. So back over to La España. Hello, Daz.
You may be wondering why I'm wearing this sort of weird neckerchief. Whilst we're here in Bilbao, it's actually the middle of a festival. So I'm putting on my full Basque appreciation and fellow sort of minority nation feel about the place. It's a huge festival called the Great Week, and think Oktoberfest, think major festivals like Edinburgh Fringe, but there's like bars, pop-up bars and theatre and music and dancing and singing, and it's just mental, and it goes on through the night, and there's fireworks every night. So huge festival, bit of a bonus to have landed here in the middle of it, so really enjoying it. So thought I'd buy into it and wear one of the official neckerchief scarves that they're all wearing for the festival. Anyway, my second prediction, Preston North End. Should be a tighter game, I think, compared to Sheffield Wednesday. I think this is going to be... they've got more capacity to score. I think they're going to potentially score, so I am predicting no clean sheets in this one. But I do think Wrexham have enough to hold on to a win again, but it'll be a narrow win, so I'm going for Wrexham 2, Preston North End 1. All right, guys, I won't be with you next week either. I'll be from another destination next week, so look out for that, and I'll try and send you another video clip for that one. All right, guys, speak to you soon. Take care.
I don't know. We let him out of the studio when he thinks he's doing a series for ITV.
So he won't be with us next week because the Boy Scouts are moving on to another country. Well, I'm not buying that. That's a load of bullshit. He's on a Boy Scouts trip. That scarf thing.
If you ask him, and he will tell you, he is actually a Queen Scout. A Queen Scout is the highest level of Scout beyond the Chief Scout you can have. So
I really wondered what you were going to say then when you started.
I know, yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah, he's not here to defend himself, so I can't. But he is. He is a Queen Scout. So yes, he holds a very high rank in scouting. I was in the boys' brigade. We just were interested in getting off with girls and playing in the band. We weren't interested in anything else. So let's wrap those chips up to keep them warm. And we'll be reviewing both these games, hopefully not live, in next week's pod. And so thank you to everybody who has been on this live pod. Thank you to everybody who's left comments, by the way. I haven't referred out to any of you, and I apologise for that. I'm too busy trying desperately not to mess things up. But thank you for all your comments. I have been reading them as we go. Really appreciated what you've said. And some of the score predictions as well have been really, really great. Obviously, as we said with regards to Sheffield Wednesday on Saturday, get your gold shirts, black and gold until it's sold. Make sure you tweet it out. Let's get behind that, which will be absolutely brilliant. Next week, we'll obviously be looking back at the two games, and we'll be looking forward to what is going to be a very interesting game away at Millwall. Plus, Jamie and I will be discussing what headaches Parky has got to try and get the squad down to 25 named players. And by that point, we could have signed another 5. You just don't know. Of course, couldn't have done any of this without Daz, who after dialing it in, and of course Jamie being here for the live pod. A little bit scary, Jamie, but thank you very much.
No, it was all good. It was nice to, like you say, it's been nice to see the comments live, and like you say, thanks to everybody for listening. I can't multitask, so I can't reply back to them at the same time. So, but yeah, thanks to everybody that's listened and commented. But no, it's been good. We haven't messed up too much, which is good.
No, I'm the one who's made the biggest mess, but by saying the wrong teams. But that's me all over. Two things I just wanted to point out. Thank you very much to the Price of Football pod, who called out the flag this week that they'd seen it. At the Sheffield, she did it again. So at the West Brom game, so that was great for them. Thank you very much. And also, with regards to making sure that we get behind Sheffield Wednesday, making sure that a message is out there, that's a really, really important part from that point of view. We'll see you all next week, and of course, we're still going to end as we always end. So, Come on, Cymru, and come on the tap.
Clinton, 1-0. Thomas, after like a goal. That's number 5.
Plays it through to Bellamy. Craig Bellamy. Craig Bellamy. It's 2-1 Wales. Craig Bellamy. Tony Hills for Wrexham into the lead.
And that's it! Wrexham are champions! Wrexham are champions! Wrexham are the FA Trophy winners 2013!
Hardick's cross, great ball! Equaliser! Elliot Lee!
Back to back to back promotions. Oh, can you believe it?
The Eat More Chips Podcast!